Hello and welcome. I am Gimba Umar. Tonight, President Muhammadu Buhari applauds international community's initiative to protect Syrians from civil war's ravages, draws parallel between Nigeria and Syria's challenges. Federal government blames persistent insurgent attacks on Dalori and other northeast Nigerian villages on poor intelligence gathering, asks locals to be more vigilant. And court fixes February the 8th as date to rule on continuing or dropping former National Security Advisor Sambadasuki's trial. And donor nations meeting in London pledged more than $10 billion to help Syrians affected by 5 years of civil war.
On business news tonight, Nigeria's telecommunications sector contributes 7.7% growth to the country's GDP in 2015.
And in sports news, Nigeria Super Eagles climb up to 63rd position in the monthly rankings of the World Soccer Governing Body, FIFA.
And from Abuja, I'm Linda Kiwe. Senegalese-born Mustafa Silo sworn in as new Speaker of the ECOWAS Parliament, alongside 115 new members of the regional parliament.
We begin tonight with the World Leaders Donor Conference in London, where President Muhammadu Buhari has applauded the initiative by the international community to protect the people of Syria from the almost 5 years old war that has ravaged the country. The president joined over 80 world leaders who converged in London for the Syrian Donor Conference. He condemned the ongoing violence and abuse of human rights in Syria. Our State House correspondent Chukwuma Onokose reports from London.
The Westminster in London is witnessing a complete lockdown as world leaders converge here for a conference on Syria. The world leaders converged on London to show solidarity with the over 13.5 million people of Syria and the region who for over 5 years are witnessing the worst humanitarian devastation following the crisis in that country. President Muhammadu Buhari is among the over 80 heads of state and government in attendance. Every country under the United Nations has a desk in the main plenary room.
Well, thank you very much.
David Cameron is passionate about this call to raise funds for the suffering masses in Syria, but calls for more action. While the United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon says at least $7 billion must be raised here today. According to him, even if the war in Syria ends now, the suffering of the people will not end immediately. He says only political dialogue will rescue the Syrian people.
Today is about funding for refugees, helping those people, helping their families, educating their children, giving them the dignity of work. That is what today is about.
We should not have the talks for the sake of the talks. The coming days should be used to get back to the table, not to secure more gains on the battlefield.
Speaker after speaker poured out their hearts in condemnation of the war in Syria. President Muhammadu Buhari says Nigeria understands the pains of the people of Syria following her experience and pledges to support in spite of the difficulties back home.
Nigeria joins in strongly condemning once again the continued violence against innocent civilians, abuse of human rights, and sheer destruction of public and private assets and cultural heritage. We in Nigeria knew what it is to be engulfed in a civil war. We also know what it is to suffer a terrorist insurgency. In our case, the terrorist group Boko Haram. We therefore understand and indeed feel the pain inflicted on the good people of Syria.
They say the world has a moral duty to restore hope to displaced people, not just in Syria, but all over the world. From the Queen Elizabeth II Conference Center in Westminster, London, Chukwuma Onwekusi, Channels Television News.
Well, back here in Nigeria, the federal government is blaming the repeated insurgent attacks on villages in the northeastern part of the country to poor intelligence gathering by the local communities. The secretary to the government of the federation, Mr. David Babachir, said this after visiting some of the victims of the recent Dalori attack in the hospital, accompanied by the Minister of State, Minister of Health for Foreign Affairs, and that of Power. Mr. Babachir also asked the villagers to report any strange person to the village heads or leaders.
These people are unique. Their dress is unique. They look unique. They look strange. So our people must be trained to be alert to watch out for strangers that do not conform to the patterns of their society and quickly reporting to the military or to the head, district head or to whoever it is that has the responsibility to do this. Quite a few of them come from our society, from our communities. They are our children who cannot run away from it. They are our brothers, they are our cousins, they are our uncles. As soon as we notice aberrant behavior, the members of our family we are duty bound to report it. If we do not do so, we share in the blame, we share in the responsibilities, the pain that have inflicted on the society. So while we commiserate with the people of Borno, we also want to solicit and indeed demand cooperation with the military in this regard.
The Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. David Babachir. In the meantime, the Federal Capital Territory High Court will on Monday, February the 8th, rule on whether or not to discharge former National Security Advisor Colonel Sambo Dasuki from the criminal charges brought against him by the federal government. Justice Hussein Baba Yusuf fixed the date after counsel to Colonel Dasuki, Mr. Joseph Daudu, and counsel to the federal government, Mr. Rotimi Jacobs, addressed the court on a motion seeking the release of the former NSA.
The immediate past National Security Advisor, Colonel Sambo Dasuki, exchanges pleasantries with his lawyers as he arrives at the court. He takes his seat alongside other accused persons as they wait for the commencement of the court sitting, which begins shortly after. Lawyer to Colonel Dasuki, Mr. Joseph Daudu, asks the court to discharge retired Colonel Dasuki of all the offences contained in the charge on the ground that the federal government cannot lawfully prosecute his client, itself having disobeyed the court. He premises his argument on the fact that Justice Hussein Baba Yusuf, on the 18th of December 2015, granted bail to Colonel Dasuki and that after meeting conditions for his bail, he was rearrested on the orders of the federal government and taken into the custody of the Department of State Services. He says since his client was rearrested on the 29th of December 2015, shortly after perfecting his bail conditions, he has been kept away from his lawyers and members of his family. He asked the court to compel the federal government to obey the court order. However, lawyer to the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Mr. Rotimi Jacobs, informs the court that the motion was an abuse of court process because there was no evidence before the court that the accused was rearrested by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. Rather, he was arrested by the Department of State for an alleged breach of service law when he was in the Nigerian army. He says the accused was a fugitive for 7 years and that he's being investigated for a series of offences. He advises the accused person to evoke Section 46 of the Constitution and file a civil action to challenge his arrest by the DSS and the enforcement of his fundamental human rights.
It's for the court to rule. I don't want to make pronouncement.
Trying to say they are hiding behind technicality.
To prevent the trial of the case. That's what is happening. That's what we allege. Let the court resolve it.
Having listened to the two parties, Justice Hussein Baba Yusuf adjourned ruling in the application to the 8th of February 2016.
A former member of the House of Representatives, Mrs. Abike Dabiri Erewa, and Diamond Bank have opted for an out-of-court settlement in the suit instituted against the bank. Mrs. Erewa had on August 6, 2015, filed a 500 million naira suit against the bank for publishing her name amongst the list of chronic debtors who have refused to liquidate their debts. In the alleged malicious publication by Punch, the former lawmaker is said to be owing the bank about 122 million naira. When the matter came up for hearing today at the Lagos High Court sitting in Ibushiri, the counsel to the bank, Chukwubu, told the court of the moves to settle the matter out of court. While outside the court, counsel representing Punch newspapers, Mr. Clement Nwayenwuro, said that the paper is not part of the settlement talks, as it has indemnity from the bank for its publication. Justice Lowell has adjourned the matter to March the 10th for a report of the settlement. And in part two, after the break, Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority suspends Bristol's operation of Sikorsky 76 helicopter type following Wednesday's Atlantic crash landing. Stay with us.